So today we're going to talk about how to identify pop art characteristics because you guys are going to be spending the next couple of weeks looking at artworks and knowing how to read them and identify certain characteristics. So in a moment, we're going to have a look at this artwork and then we're going to learn how we would know that this is an actual pop art artwork. So let's first of all just recap what pop art was about. So it was a style of modern art which began in the 50s, depicting popular culture of the time. So the movement aimed to solidify the idea that art can be drawn from any source. Remember, art for all. The art was inspired by commercial items and cultural icons such as product labels, advertisements, comic books, mundane objects, and celebrities and movie stars. So we need to know these things so that we can answer these questions below. So pop art was young, witty, bold, glamorous, and fun. People wanted to buy more and spend more and be on TV. It was revolutionary and mass produced. This means lots of copies were made to represent mass production, just like in factories where they make like soup cans and Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Pop art looked the way it did to celebrate popular culture and a consumer society. That just means, again, how we consume lots of different products and food, but they're all the same. So we just like to consume, eat, drink, all that kind of stuff, certain products. So that is what a pop art was about. Now let's actually look at characteristics that make a pop art artwork. So usually it doesn't have to be all of these, it could just be one. So you need to learn to recognize these in artworks. So in the artwork, it could have popular imagery, but expendable, meaning easily forgotten. So like the Campbell's soup cans, popular imagery, mass produced, but can be easily forgotten. Artists could have incorporated commonplace objects such as comic strips, soup cans, newspapers, and more. A characteristic of pop art is bright colors. Okay, so sometimes using really bright, vivid, and simple colors used in flat block areas of color, meaning there's no tone. It's like this over here, as you can see, it's flat block color. And typically, artists of pop art used the primary colors in their work quite frequently, but not all the time, but it was a common characteristic. A pop art characteristic was recognizable imagery. So utilize images and icons from popular media and products. Sometimes it had irony and satire, meaning humor was one of the main components of pop art. Usually it was a little bit funny or it had a bit of a joke. It definitely was aimed at youth, okay? A lot of the artworks were aimed at youth at the time. And sometimes it used actions in scenes. And another characteristic of pop art was repetition of scenes, like up in a grid, lots of different images like of a Marilyn Monroe. And printmaking processes became very popular in this pop art style. So what we're going to do now is we've recapped, we've learned a bit about pop art characteristics. So now we're going to look at this artwork and answer this question, which is explain how the artist has used pop art characteristics to create this artwork. Use specific examples from the artwork to prove your point. So this artwork is by Rory Lichtenstein. Okay, so we know that's the artist's name. And the title of the work is called In the Car. It was made in 1963 and it's oil and magna on canvas. Okay, so this is not a screen print, but it still does definitely use pop art characteristics. So now we actually have to identify them, okay, just by looking at it. So it might jump out at you quite easily, it might not. So let's just quickly have a look at some characteristics of pop art. Let's have a look here. Popular imagery, probably not that one. Artists incorporated commonplace objects such as comic strips. Does this look like a comic strip to you? I think it does. So that is one of the characteristics of pop art used here. So what we do here is all we have to do for this lesson is fill out this table, okay? And this is going to help us answer a question, actually writing in full sentences at a later lesson in the future. So idea we would put here is comic book style. Okay. So we know it's a comic book style because when we look at the actual artwork, first of all, we can see that it has bold outlines. We can see that it has been cropped like a comic strip. So see how it's been cropped off here, just like it is typically in comic strips. We can see that there's some sort of narrative like a comic strip as well. So there's also no tonal qualities in the faces. So they've been left cartoon-like in this artwork. So there's some of the things we would write in facts, details, and examples. So you can actually just do this in dot points if you'd like, because it might make it easier. So you'd say bold outlines. You could say comic strip with narrative. You say cropped comic. And what did I say? No tonal qualities as well. Okay, so then in your visualize, okay, normally we do this physically, but for this activity, we're going to do it digitally. So you're just going to have to find an image and insert it into the visualize just to show an example of the details or the type of style or the idea that you're trying to tell me, pretty much. I'd show your understanding of. So I'm just going to go to an image that I've already gotten. It's just a comic strip style, a basic comic strip style. And I'll pop it in there in the visualize section, but I might just make it a little smaller because it doesn't need to be big. And I might just make it centered. So that's at the moment kind of what you have to do, but you need to have 3 different ideas. There is a fair few for this particular artwork, which I've already talked about some of them in here, such as you might talk about the bright colors used in this one. And maybe you would remember which color scheme has been used in this one here. Maybe you'll remember from our previous activity that a triadic color scheme has been used here. Now, which colors have been used? But yes, this color scheme does create visual contrast and harmony at the same time. This yellow really dominates here, but at the same time, this red and the blue also balances out the whole image. So these are some of the things you could be writing for further on down here. And then you could just add a little, if you are doing color, you can just add little colored squares if you'd like. So you could just go insert table in, oh, hold on, make sure you have this highlighted though. Insert table, and if you just want to put 3 colors in there, that's how you would insert little squares. And then if you wanted to color those squares, you would just do that like so. So red, blue, and yellow have been used, which are the what? The primary colors. So that's your visual example of the colors being used. So that's all you have to do for the visualize there. So pretty much I've given you the first 2. What you're going to do is finish off the last one. You might add some other areas down here. You might think that, it's a man and a woman. She looks pretty glamorous. So, and they're driving in a fast car. You can tell it's fast because of all these lines. So maybe the last characteristic could be aimed at youth, perhaps. So we need to now go in and type all this up and find or create visualizations of each. You need this because this is a planning page for our next week activity. So if you don't do this properly, you're going to struggle to write a whole paragraph about a different artwork. Okay, same artist, but a different artwork. So it's going to be by Roy Lichtenstein, but you are going to need this to help you write in a future lesson. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to talk to you about. So good luck with that today, and I'll see you next time.